Okay, this is first grading period benchmark review B. We're reviewing Algebra 4.0 and 5.0, and we're basically setting up word problems into algebraic equations and then solving them. This is what it looks like. And it starts with this one. David made X dollars at a garage sale. Luis made 5 more than David, and Deshawn made 3 times as much as Luis. If Deshawn made $45, how much did David make? Okay, so David made X dollars, so we're going to put David equals X because we don't know how much he made. Luis made 5 more than David, so Luis made how much David made plus $5 more. And Deshawn made 3 times as much as Luis. Well, Deshawn, if he made 3 times as much as Luis, that means he made 3 times this amount here, and I'm going to put it in parentheses because you have to multiply that 3 times the entire amount that Luis made. Okay, so we got David, Luis, and Deshawn. And then the problem goes on to say if Deshawn made $45, how much did David make? Well, if Deshawn made $45, this right here should be equal to $45. So Deshawn made $45, which equals 3 times the quantity X plus 5. So I'm going to do my distributive property here and get 3X plus 15. Pretty sure you can take it from here, subtract 15 from both sides, and 3X will equal 30. Divide by 3 and X will equal 10. Well, if X is 10, that's how much David made. And that was the question. How much did David make? David made $10. Luis made $15, 10 plus 5. Deshawn made 45, which is 3 times the amount Luis made, which was 15. So this all checks out. And since they're asking how much David made, then the answer is 10, or A. Number 2, the total monthly cost, which is represented by the letter C in dollars, of talking on a cell phone for N minutes. And this says N is greater than or equal to 450, which tells me that the number of minutes is equal to 450 or greater than 450 is given by the equation below. And if the total cost for last month was $58, how many minutes did the owner spend talking on the phone? Well, they gave us this equation and they told us that the total monthly cost is represented by C, and then they tell us the total cost was $58. So I'm going to take this $58 and substitute in for C. So 58 equals 0.45 times N. I'm doing my distributive property here right now. And then a positive times a negative is going to be negative, let's see, 40.45 times 450. Well, is 0, 25, 22, 0, 20, 18, 0, 5, 2, 10, 2. 2 digits after the decimals, 202.50 plus 40. Only I don't need this because I already did my distributive property. So sorry. Alright, so I can combine this with this, and there's more negatives than positives, so I'm going to get negative 162.50. And I'm going to have 0.45n minus 162.50, which I got when I combined those. Now I want to get this alone, So I'm going to add 162.50 to both sides. And I'm going to make sure my decimals are lined up because 58 has a decimal at the end even though we don't see it. And this is 0, 5, 10, 12, 220, 50 equals 0.45 n, and this cancels out. If I divide both sides by 0.45, I think you are going to find out that n is equal to 490. Number 3. Which is the first incorrect step in the solution shown above? Now, I think I told you this in class. Rather than looking at these and trying to find the mistake, I like to just do the problem myself and then compare the answers to what they give us. So, here's the problem to begin with. Negative 3x plus 4 times quantity 5 minus 3x, blah, 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 blah. Negative 3x plus 4 times 5 is 20. And then positive 4 times negative 3x is negative 12x, and that equals 110. Let's see what they got. Negative 3x plus 20 minus 12x equals 110. Looks like step 1 is good. Now, the next thing I would do is combine like terms. And I have 12 negative x's, and I have 3 negative x's. And if I combine those all, I have 15 negative x's plus 20, and that equals 110. And now I want to get this term alone because it contains my variable, so I'm going to subtract 20, and I'm going to get negative 15x equals 90. Oopsie, look at me blasting along here. Did they get negative 15x plus 20 equals 110? They did not, and I know what they did. Look at, they got negative 9x. It looks like they thought it was 12 negatives and 3 positives. So where's the first boo-boo? That would be step 2. All right. What's the solution to this equation? And I asked you to solve and justify each step. So we're going to write down negative 4 times the quantity 3 minus 2x equals 2 times the quantity 2 minus 3x plus 6x. And that is given. So that would be our justification. First thing we're going to do is distributive property. So I got negative 12 plus 8x equals 4 minus 6x, and then bring down this positive 6x. And I was able to do that because of distributive property. And of course, if this was a test, I would write this out. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to now. I'm going to combine like terms. These cancel out, and I get negative 12 plus 8x equals 4. And I'm going to isolate the term that contains the variable by adding 12. And what allows me to do that is the addition property of equality. And when I add 12 to both sides, 8x equals 16. And I'm going to do the division property of equality. And I find that x equals 2. And this was the division property of equality. So if x is 2, let's go back here. 3 minus 2 times 2 would be 3 minus 4, which would be negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 4 would be 4. And if x is 2, then this would be 2 minus 6, which would be negative 4 times 2 is 8, and negative 8. And if 6 times 2 is 12, if I combine negative 8 and 12, I get 4. So 4 equals 4. And I've justified it, I solved it, justified it, and I verified it. And I feel pretty good, but that's the answer. Okay. It costs $12 to rent a bike at the beach for the first 2 hours. For additional time, it costs $8 per hour. What is the maximum number of hours the bike can be used if the total cost is not to exceed $36? All right, it costs $12 to rent a bike at the beach for the first 2 hours. That's not $12 an hour. It says $12 for the first 2 hours. So first 2 hours would cost $12, and then for the rest of the time it costs $8 per hour. So what's the maximum number of hours the bike can be used if the total cost is not to exceed 36? If it's not going to exceed 36, that means it can be equal to 36 or it can be less than 36. Okay. So I want to isolate this variable right here, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. And 8h is less than or equal to 24. And if I divide both sides by 8, h is going to be less than or equal to 3. However, that's 3 hours at the $8 per hour rate. What's the maximum number of hours the bike can be used if the total cost is not to exceed 36? Well, if I write it at this rate for 3 hours, that costs me 24, plus the $12 I already paid for the first 2 hours. So we got 2 hours at this rate, 3 hours at this rate. The total number of hours I can rent the bike and not spend more than $36 is 5 hours. That would be letter C. First 2 hours cost me $12. The next 3 hours cost me $24, and total cost was $36 for 5 hours. And lastly, the width of a rectangle is W, and the length is 3W minus 4. If the perimeter of the rectangle is 40 meters, what is the value of W? Slide this up here so we can see what we're doing. Okay. The width of a rectangle is W, so I'm going to draw a rectangle, and this is supposed to be a rectangle. Just pretend like this is really a rectangle. And it says the width is W. Now, remember I told you it doesn't matter if you call this the width or this the width. It doesn't matter. And the length is 3W minus 4. And the perimeter is 40 meters. So what's the value of W? Well, perimeter is the distance around the outside. So that means I'm going to have to add W 2 times and 3W minus 4 2 times, because if I add all 4 of these sides, I should get 40 meters. So that means I'm going to have 2 W's, and then I'm going to have 3W minus 4 2 times. And I'm going to add all that together. Okay? So 40 is equal to 2W plus 6W minus 8. So 40 is going to equal to 8W minus 8. If I want to get this alone, I'm going to add 8 to both sides.